US President Joe Biden has quietly shelved the trade pact with the UK before the 2024 elections. We're going to read into this more from Politico, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an article from Politico with the headline that Biden quietly shelves the trade pact with the UK before the 2024 elections. Britain has long coveted a US trade agreement with a significant post-Brexit prize. So, as you guys know, one of the big shouts from the Brexiteer side is about our big trade deal with the US that we're going to have after we leave the European Union, and that has been, rumbling around, sort of thing. But the US has been very keen not to do it. There's obviously been the situation with Northern Ireland, what's been happening there. The attitude of the United Kingdom, the way it's been talking about the Rwanda scheme and talking about breaking international laws. Its portrayal on the world stage has really been hampered over the last several years in particular, shall we say several years in particular, as opposed to the last 13 years. It really has changed its position quite dramatically. And it's not worth the hassle for America to have a trade deal with us. We're not in the right frame of mind for it. And yes, while things are pretty bonkers here in the UK, and yes, people will argue things are pretty bonkers over there in America, there's no real ample benefit right now for America to have a trade deal with the UK. There's no real, it's not the be all and end all to trade deal for them. We need it more than they need us, considering how much red tape we've put on ourselves since we've locked up our barriers with the EU and made things more difficult for businesses. And the other thing is as well is that we would make we'd have to really bend over to really try and get a trade deal with the US. Give up a lot of significance for it as well, because they hold the cards in this. It's funny, because I thought we were supposed to have all the cards when we left the EU. That doesn't seem to happen. But this is another hamper, something that Labour can kind of say as well. They were going to give us a trade deal with the US, and that's never happened, has it? So let's read into it. So, President Joe Biden has quietly shelved plans for a foundational trade agreement with the UK ahead of the 2024 election, following the Senate's opposition and disagreement over the scope of the deal. A draft outline of the pact and its 11 proposed chapters, prepared by the United States Trade Representative, the USTR office, earlier this year, indicated negotiations would begin before the end of 2023. But after facing multiple headwinds, the deal is not expected to go ahead. Two people briefed by the British and U.S. governments, respectively, told Politico both were granted anonymously to speak on the sensitive matter. "Oh, I don't think we're going to see that re-emerge," said one of the people briefed on the proposed negotiations. The proposed timeline for talks, which would not consider market access or meet the World Trade Organization definition of a free trade agreement, set out that negotiations would wrap up ahead of elections in Britain and the US next year. So they were supposed to try and get this sorted before both the British and American elections, and that does not seem to be the case at all. The deal was closer in substance to the US-led Indo-Pacific Economic Framework of Prosperity, the IPEF, which tackles relations and non-tariff barriers than a full trade agreement. So it wouldn't even be a proper trade agreement. That's the other thing as well. So it wouldn't even be a proper trade agreement. And here's the thing as well, you have to remember this. A proper trade agreement can take years to negotiate a proper one. But obviously the ones we had with the likes of Australia and New Zealand, the ones that were struck, were ones where we gave them everything and had nothing in return. Because that's how desperate they wanted to have a headline saying, "Yay, post-Brexit trade deal." I know, it's pretty embarrassing. But last month, the IPEF talks fell apart after senior Democrats criticised the Biden administration's negotiations of trade provisions that did not contain enforceable labour standards. The British government has long coveted a trade agreement with the US as a significant post-Brexit prize. The draft was considered a roadmap to eventually securing a full-fledged comprehensive deal. Business and Trade Secretary Kevin McAnuff pitched the IPEF-style deal in April during Biden's visit to Belfast, Bloomberg reported. The reinvigorated talks first started under the Trump administration. Controversial oversight. Key voices in the US have expressed concerns about the nature of the pact with the UK. Trade negotiations should be driven by substance, said the spokesperson for Democrat Senator Ron Welkin, chairman of the powerful Senate Finance Committee, which provides congressional oversight for trade. It is Senator Wine's view that the United States and the United Kingdom should not make announcements until a deal with that benefits Americans is achievable, the spokesperson added. When Politico first reported on proposed talks in October, Wine said he was extremely disappointed the Biden administration was attempting to proceed with a trade agreement that would neither benefit the American people nor respect the roles of Congress in international trade. Wine's spokesperson said Congress must deliver a clear role in approving any future trade agreements and that the senior Democrats believe it is important for the USTR to be significantly more engaged with Congress than any future negotiations. So it looks like, so according to this, it looks like that perhaps whatever we were talking, it wasn't really, in his opinion, a benefit to the US. And to be honest, it wasn't, that's the other thing. What can we offer the United States? That's the question, because there has to be a given, there has to be a given for both sides of it to work as well. The USTR has gone back to Congress to ask for its input on a potential UK trade deal, but major outstanding issues between the US and UK remain, including agriculture and whether any agreement would benefit American workers. In a recent briefing with US diplomats, the vibes were quite tough, said the second person briefed on the proposed negotiations cited earlier. They just doubled down on, you guys really need to learn on the work-centric trade policies and put yourself in the shoes of somebody in Pennsylvania. The message the person added was, does this improve a lot of the farmers in Iowa? Does this help the US economy? And if it doesn't, they're not going to do it. The US approach seems to be more focused on labour standards, on environment issues, these very worthy things, said the person briefed on the proposed negotiations quoted at the top of the story. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak cabinet also pushed back on a chapter dealing with agriculture regulations in the draft after the British leader told a food summit earlier this year that he would not allow chemical washes or hormone-injected beef imports like those from the US into Britain. Scottish ministers, meanwhile, complained that they hadn't been consulted. Agriculture regulations are devolved issues in Scotland. In the meantime, the focus on the UK-US trade relations is predominantly on security and criminal mineral agreements that would allow British automotive firms to tap into electronic vehicles robust offered in the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act. The US and UK are rapidly expanding cooperation on a range of vital economic and trade issues, building on the Atlantic Declaration announced earlier this year, said a UK government spokesperson. Some in the UK are taking philosophical views on whether the wider-ranging trade deal with the US is really needed. Michelle Manisi, who, as Lord Mayor of the City of London, opened a new outpost for the UK's powerhouse financial district in New York City on Monday, said the trade is going to be fine without it. It might go a bit better with it. The latest numbers shows two-way trade between the nations grew 23.8% in the end of year to quarter 2 2023. But in the US, a trade deal with the UK is just not that high on the list, Mashani said. And that's the thing. It's not high on the list, like I said. A trade deal with the US is not high on the list in any way, shape or form. And there are more, I would say, there are more other trade deals that they want to slash out, shall we say, rather than us. And we're not high up on that at all. And it doesn't really indicate there what they're not really. We don't know too much about the details anyway, if what. But from the understanding from what Politico are saying is that whatever talks there was, it wasn't in terms of favour for the US there, from what they're stating. But in all seriousness, like, I just don't see right now, like as much as the Brexiteers here in the UK bragged so much about how a US trade deal would make such a significant difference to us, and we still haven't got that deal. And even if this was going to happen, it wasn't even a proper trade deal. It wasn't even going to be a proper trade deal as well, as it reads there in the article. I mean, it's quite insane when you think about it all. So what do you guys make of it? Are you surprised that it's going to be shelved before both the US and UK elections? Did we actually think there was going to be any kind of significant trade deal, in all honesty, guys? Let me know what you guys honestly think in the comment section down below about it. Hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I upload another video. And subscribe, because it really does help. And if you want to financially support me, you can do so by buying me a coffee or joining me on Patreon. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all Very, very so.